When a foreign submarine is detected submerged and silent near US EEZs, it begins with silence, colder than the ocean, sharper than steel. Somewhere deep beneath the Pacific, a sonar operator aboard a US Navy vessel sees an anomaly. No transponder, no comms, just a faint acoustic signature sliding along the edge of US waters. A submerged foreign submarine, not in territorial seas but close, inside or just brushing the US exclusive economic zone. Instantly, without a shot or a sound, a system decades in the making kicks into motion. It's precise, invisible, and calibrated to avoid war, unless the submarine makes the first mistake. In 2025, Venezuela's submarine fleet presents a paradox. Its obscurity is precisely what makes it dangerous. While its conventional fleet remains underfunded, stealth platforms like submarines have taken priority, offering political leverage rather than pure power projection. The less known about these vessels, the more unsettling their presence becomes, signaling to adversaries like the US that Caracas holds unpredictable cards beneath the waves. The unanswered questions persist. Where are these submarines? Who commands them? And what are their operational limits? Most critically, has one already triggered a secret acoustic chase with US forces off the Caribbean shelf? The unknown is precisely where the threat resides. Venezuela reportedly maintains two Type 219-1300 class German-built diesel-electric attack submarines, acquired decades ago. These Cold War relics, though aging, remain formidable, capable of patrolling the entire southern Caribbean unnoticed with a crew of 33, a submerged displacement of 1,285 tons, and a range exceeding 11,000 kilometers when snorkeling. Additionally, at least one rumored mini-submarine is believed to be in use for diver transport or coastal special forces operations, though no confirmed class, port origin, or photographic evidence exists publicly. Intelligence sources hint at possible domestic modifications or cooperation with rogue states for parts and quiet refits, but the deeper one looks, the less is found. A deliberate strategy of concealment. The most intriguing, though unconfirmed, possibility is Venezuela's acquisition of a Russian Kilo-class submarine known as Project 877 or Project 636, and dubbed the Black Hole by NATO for its low acoustic signature. Reports between 2015 and 2023 indicated Venezuela's interest in these vessels, with mentions of training exchanges and financing talks between Moscow and Caracas, yet nothing has ever been confirmed nor denied. The core mystery of 2025 revolves around whether a Venezuelan submarine was recently acoustically detected by US anti-submarine warfare assets in the Caribbean.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
No open source record confirms this. No sonar buoy logs, satellite detection summaries, or public incident reports from the US Navy or NATO. The US Southern Command has remained silent, and fleet trackers, including those of Carrier Strike Group 10, which recently completed regional exercises, make no mention of contact with Venezuelan underwater assets. This silence, however, is suspicious. Defense experts note an uptick in US Navy P-8 Poseidon surveillance flights along the Venezuelan coast between May and July 2025, with expanded sonobuoy patterns and an increased presence of destroyers equipped with towed array sonar. Such peacetime maneuvers are reactive, not routine. The lack of explanation is telling, for in modern naval conflict, acoustic detections are high-level intelligence, revealing how a submarine was located and compromising detection methods. If the US did detect a Venezuelan submarine in waters it shouldn't be in, admitting it could compromise tracking capabilities. The Venezuelan submarine fleet is more than a capability. It is a psychological pressure point. Submarines, unlike ships or jets, need only to exist somewhere, possibly within strike or detection range, or possibly not. This forces navies into constant defense, in a region where US naval presence is dominant but spread thin. Every potential unknown under the waterline carries consequences. Realistically, a Venezuelan submarine would not survive long in kinetic conflict against the full spectrum of U.S. capabilities. Survival, however, is not the goal. Ambiguity is. A credible sonar ping during a U.S. carrier transit changes the game. An unconfirmed subsighting near a fuel depot forces rerouting patrols. A mysterious acoustic trail near Colombia's oil platforms could trigger a diplomatic incident, all without a single shot fired. This is the power of a submarine fleet designed not for domination, but for doubt. The lack of open-source confirmation means the threat is not in the data, but in its absence. If the U.S. detected a Venezuelan submarine and did not disclose it, it might be to avoid panic or political escalation, to preserve counter-submarine tactics, or because the submarine vanished before confirmation. Alternatively, if no such contact occurred, Venezuela still benefits because the mere idea of it gives their small fleet strategic weight, acting as a force multiplier. To ASW planners, even one unknown contact creates chaos, leading to the deployment of more sonar arrays, increased patrols, or diversion of frigates to shadow a blip that may or may not exist. Every minute spent on a Venezuelan ghost submarine is a minute not spent tracking Russian or Chinese naval movements elsewhere, exemplifying distraction as defense. This dynamic is likely to intensify, with Venezuela's alliance with Russia potentially extending the lifespan and capabilities of its underwater fleet through technical aid. The deployment of regional sensors by U.S. and NATO allies in Colombia and Guyana underscores growing concern. The question remains, are we entering a Caribbean Cold War under the sea? It may already be underway, with Venezuela's small, mysterious submarines playing a role far beyond their numbers. The waters near Aruba, Curaçao, and the Guajira Peninsula are saturated with sonar and underwater microphones, yet the acoustic zone of a detected Venezuelan submarine remains undisclosed, classified, non-existent, or lost before a clean lock could be made. The effect persists, the cold sweat of a sonar operator reporting an unknown contact, possible diesel-electric, range decreasing. Whether from a Type 209, a mini-sub, or an anomaly, the uncertainty ensures that silence will never again feel safe in the Caribbean. In war, uncertainty is a weapon, and Venezuela may be wielding it better than presumed. As of July 2025, despite rising tensions and Venezuelan military posturing, no confirmed publicly available reports identify specific U.S. Navy or Coast Guard assets tracking or responding to a Venezuelan submarine. The tools are present, the stakes are high, but the details are omitted, opaque, possibly classified, or too volatile to surface.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
This vacuum is a deliberate void where the story is written not by presence, but by omission. What does it signify when one of the world's most advanced naval surveillance networks cannot confirm a basic operational response to an undersea threat in the Western Hemisphere? Venezuela does possess submarines, at least 2 known Soviet-built Kilo-class diesel-electric attack submarines, with rumors of smaller, indigenous or Iranian-influenced mini-subs operating in coastal waters. These vessels, though not state-of-the-art, can shift power balances in shallow waters near disputed boundaries or critical infrastructure. When tensions escalated off Guyana's coast in early 2025, during Venezuelan Navy harassment of ExxonMobil's offshore operations, a routine response might have been expected. A P-8A Poseidon overhead, a Coast Guard cutter with sonar buoys, or a Freedom-class LCS on ASW alert. Yet, none of this was confirmed, not even through unofficial channels. The risk lies not just in submarine movement, but in the information gap. Venezuela's ability to deploy a submarine is about what it forces others to assume, and assumption is what the U.S. Navy must avoid. A submarine can be invisible, lingering near oil rigs, cable junctions, or shipping routes. Unless tracked from port, its potential targets multiply. The absence of a confirmed U.S. response is dangerous psychologically, for if American assets are tracking them but not revealing it, the public is unaware. If they are not tracking them, the threat operates in a blind spot. Both possibilities are disturbing. The U.S. possesses every tool to dominate the undersea domain. The P-8A Poseidon with sonobuoys, MAD sensors, and long-range torpedoes, Coast Guard cutters like the Legend class with advanced sonar and helicopters, joint task forces for narco subs, and unidentified undersea traffic. Yet, in this instance, nothing was confirmed. Rigzone's March 2025 report on Venezuelan Navy approaches to ExxonMobil vessels off Guyana mentioned no submarines nor U.S. response assets. Forbes previously raised alarms about Venezuela's undersea capabilities, hinting at cable sabotage potential, but offered no confirmation of U.S. tracking or deterrence in real time. Even the Office of the Director of National Intelligence's unclassified 2025 report cites Venezuela as a regional destabilizer and references its undersea capacity, but remains blank on U.S. counter-submarine operations. The silence might be strategic. The U.S. could be tracking Venezuelan subs around the clock with P-8s from Guantanamo Bay and Virginia-class fast attacks in the Caribbean under radio silence. By refusing to confirm this presence, the U.S. retains control of escalation. In submarine warfare, visibility is vulnerability, revealing what has been seen and how compromises methods and loses the edge. This strategy, however, risks leaving the public and allies uncertain, which can lead to miscalculation in high-stakes maritime zones. If Venezuela deployed a Kilo-class submarine near ExxonMobil's vessels and the U.S. failed to detect or deter it, the consequences could be immense: a collision, a false flag confrontation, or a misread underwater engagement. The oil rigs off Guyana are billion-dollar investments and political symbols. A submarine within torpedo range, even for observation, changes the equation, and without confirmed American assets, that risk multiplies. Naval analyst H.I. Sutton has consistently warned that Venezuela's undersea ambitions are underestimated, highlighting the likelihood of hybrid underwater threats combining narcotics trafficking platforms with military mini-subs. His prediction that Venezuela would use submarine ambiguity as a tool of influence, not direct confrontation, appears to be unfolding. Yet the Pentagon remains silent, with no statements from CENTCOM, NORTHCOM, or SOUTHCOM confirming ASW activity related to Venezuelan assets. Treasury Department sanctions target surface entities, not the undersea threat. Another layer involves undersea cables, carrying over 95% of global internet traffic, with routes between North and South America frighteningly close to Venezuelan waters. A 2025 NTIA submission on submarine cable protection raised concerns about state-sponsored tampering near sovereign boundaries, implicitly pointing to Venezuela. If a Venezuelan submarine or its proxies tampered with undersea cables, the digital shockwave would be immediate. Yet no confirmation exists that U.S. response infrastructure is actively engaged in deterrence at those depths. This issue extends beyond military insiders. It concerns every citizen who assumes the oceans around their country are safe. If a foreign submarine tampers with infrastructure and it goes untracked, the damage is personal, slowing internet, failing bank transactions, buffering Netflix. The lack of confirmed U.S. response doesn't mean nothing is happening, but it does mean the public is uninformed, a concerning reality when critical infrastructure is potentially vulnerable. As of July 2025, Venezuela continues joint exercises with Iranian and Russian advisors, its submarine fleet remaining operational if limited. Guyana's offshore oil platforms remain strategic, symbolic, and economically indispensable targets. Every day without confirmation is another day in the dark, and in submarine warfare, the dark is deadly. The U.S. has not confirmed which Navy or Coast Guard assets have tracked, intercepted, or responded to a Venezuelan submarine. The platforms and threats exist, but the official connection remains unspoken. This silence could be strategy, oversight, or an unvoiced admission that this theater is not fully under control. In submarine warfare, knowledge is dominance. and the certainty is that not enough is known. When a submarine is detected, it is expected to react, run, hide, surface, jam, or fight. Yet, according to all currently available public and declassified data in 2025, no such reports exist of Venezuelan subs responding to U.S. detection attempts. Not one publicly confirmed incident of a Venezuelan submarine being boxed in or reacting with countermeasures. This matters because in a high-tension region, silence does not equate to peace. It signals a lack of transparency, or worse, a lack of capability. The waters off Venezuela are taut with quiet pressure, particularly around Guyana's disputed EEZ. While Venezuelan surface vessels have made assertive moves, the psychological weight of a submarine is enormous. It shifts how carrier groups maneuver and sonar buoys are deployed. When this potential presence vanishes from public reporting, it forces a chilling thought. Was it never there? Or was it there and silenced? Venezuela's known submarine capability, consisting of two German-built Type 209 Powers 1300 class diesel-electric submarines, the Sabalo and the Caribe, is limited on paper, quiet, compact, and suited for coastal defense. Their current operational status is unclear, with reports suggesting prolonged maintenance gaps and intermittent deployment, but none confirming combat readiness. Still, their mere existence generates uncertainty. In asymmetric naval environments, the threat of even a single functioning submarine forces powerful adversaries to commit significant anti-submarine warfare resources. The U.S. has conducted multiple high-profile freedom of navigation operations and regional surveillance missions in the Caribbean, including off the Venezuelan coast, yet no confirmed accounts, not even leaks, exist of a Venezuelan submarine reacting to sonar contact or aerial surveillance. No documentation of acoustic evasion, jamming attempts, or surfacing under duress. Not even anonymous Pentagon sources hinting at near-miss underwater encounters, which is standard in tense zones. This is unprecedented. China and Russia have reported close calls with U.S. assets, and Iran's mini-subs have made headlines tracking U.S. warships, but Venezuela, a complete blackout. Modern diesel-electric submarines can deploy electronic warfare defenses, including sonar countermeasures, decoy emitters, and short-burst jamming devices. However, no such measures have been observed from Venezuelan submarines. No altered sonar signatures, sudden acoustic silences, or buoy drops indicative of evasion. This suggests either the submarines were not present or they were detected and chose not to react. Both scenarios are troubling. If Venezuelan submarines were shadowing U.S. assets and failed to react to sonar pings, it could mean a lack of onboard detection systems, operational coordination, or willingness to escalate. Worse, it might reveal a strategic gap, submarines that exist but are effectively inert. In a high-stakes region where perception equals deterrence, this is not merely equipment failure, but a failure of posture. And if they were not there at all, Venezuela's submarine force might be more myth than menace, collapsing assumptions about its naval deterrence. Open-source intelligence platforms largely focus on Venezuela's surface-level naval operations, including aggressive patrols and harassment of commercial vessels, with little detailed commentary on active submarine patrols or undersea confrontation. Forbes, while highlighting secrecy around Venezuelan underwater assets in 2020, has provided no credible update on their operational status. Even FCC and international maritime regulatory databases show no entries for Venezuelan underwater jamming frequencies between 2023 and 2025. This silence is the entire picture. This narrative matters to anyone concerned with global stability, regional sovereignty, and credible deterrence. A regime maintaining submarine capabilities without public oversight, with those capabilities completely unaccounted for, poses a risk extending beyond the sea. If subs ghost undetected, it's a surveillance threat. If non-functional, but presented as active, it's disinformation. if confronted and silenced before reaction. It's a security risk with escalation consequences. Every possibility carries regional ramifications, and in perception warfare, the absence of public reaction may be more impactful than a torpedo launch. The next time U.S. anti-submarine warfare assets sweep the Caribbean, they might encounter real opposition: a functioning, armed, reactive, or foreign-advised Venezuelan submarine. With no precedent, every encounter becomes guesswork, a dangerous urgency where there is no time for uncertainty. The real story is what didn't happen. As of mid-2025, no public detail confirms how a Venezuelan submarine responded to U.S. detection or challenge. This massive, intentional, strategic silence means uncertainty regarding rules of engagement, capabilities, and the efficacy of deterrence. It should concern everyone watching the tectonic shifts of naval power in the Western Hemisphere. For sometimes, the most dangerous submarines are those no one can confirm were ever there at all. The U.S. evaluation of the Venezuelan submarine's behavior following a detected contact in early 2025 near its southern maritime boundary emphasized a controlled, measured response, asserting maritime domain awareness, deterrence, and control. While no detailed public reports describe the exact behavioral assessment, the general U.S. posture concerning such encounters provides context. The response was not a dramatic chase or escalation, but a calculated, silent analysis and controlled presence, reaffirming U.S. strategic dominance across the hemisphere. There was no public video, press release, or footage of racing destroyers, but the action was calibrated. The U.S. evaluated the submarine not as a mere tactical blip, but as a potential signal requiring a layered, unflinching response rooted in strategic doctrine. Assert sovereignty, maintain escalation control, and dominate the battle space before it becomes a battlefield. This incident transcended a single submarine. It was about deterrence in the gray zone, where hostile intent hides behind plausible deniability, and military professionalism must outweigh political theater. The U.S., through Southern Command and Naval Forces South, executes a doctrine of persistent presence, surveillance, and superiority, meaning if it moves underwater near U.S. waters, it is seen, followed, and held accountable, quietly if possible, visibly if necessary. The Venezuelan submarine did not cross into U.S. territorial waters, surface aggressively, or attempt direct contact. However, its proximity to the U.S. exclusive economic zone, a space considered not just a resource frontier, but a red line for foreign influence, was provocative, a deliberate signal that was received. The American response was not a standoff, but manifested through maritime domain awareness, an invisible, omnipresent network of surveillance platforms, sonar nets, P-8, Poseidon reconnaissance flights, and submerged tracking by U.S. attack submarines. This layered defense strategy enables U.S. Navy dominance without revealing its hand. A Venezuelan submarine entering this sphere triggers a chain of evaluations. Is it armed, tracking shipping lanes, shadowing military assets, or gathering intelligence for external actors? These are not guesses, but rigorously modeled threat evaluations managed through Southcom and linked with national intelligence assets. The tension lies in the U.S. ability to detect and track without engaging, while sending an unmistakable message. We see you, we are closer than you think, cross the line, and we won't hesitate. This posture is a result of decades of pressure shaping American doctrine in the Western Hemisphere, as Russia, Iran, and China have probed regional influence. Venezuela has become the test case for low-end asymmetric pressure on U.S. boundaries, employing submarines, unmarked aircraft, and smuggling vessels as probing maneuvers. Therefore, U.S. maritime strategy absorbs such contact, processes it, and uses it to project even greater authority. The public silence surrounding the incident was deliberate. The platforms spoke for themselves. Destroyers like the USS Lassen, cutters like the USCGC Hamilton, and circling P-8s ensure no surprises in U.S. waters. These assets are not merely hardware, they are deterrent theater in motion. The message to Venezuela was not shouted, but shown. U.S. Navy patrols continued uninterrupted. Carrier strike groups conducted freedom of navigation operations elsewhere. Surveillance flights increased, and joint maritime drills with allies were reaffirmed. Every move was a silent counter to Caracas's undersea gesture, proving that dominance is about control, not noise. In 2025, U.S. maritime control is more precise, interconnected, and psychologically effective than ever. This strategy is rooted in preserving order, where maritime boundaries are respected, not tested by submarines seeking publicity. Each time the U.S. identifies, tracks, and de-escalates such encounters, it reinforces a region-wide reminder. The U.S. watches everything and responds with discipline, not fear. This discipline does not imply softness. The same Navy that allowed a Venezuelan submarine to pass without drama conducts joint kill chain exercises, integrates AI into anti-submarine warfare, and maintains layered underwater listening stations throughout key Atlantic and Caribbean choke points. This matters because Venezuela's submarine was not an isolated threat, but part of a growing pattern confirmed by Southcom and the 2025 posture statement. Venezuelan maritime activity is increasingly tied to illicit trafficking, foreign military cooperation, and regional destabilization. Submarines, though not central, are part of this toolkit, necessitating continuous adaptation of U.S. doctrine. Post-incident evaluation involves algorithms, analyzed sonar pings, acoustic signatures matched to historical patterns, and mission briefs shared among Southcom, naval intelligence, and allied navies. It assesses not just location, but potential actions, shadowing targets, and alignment with threat profiles. The U.S. did not escalate because escalation was unnecessary to prove dominance. Instead, America reinforced its strategic principles: peace through vigilance, readiness through deterrence, and response through presence. Allies in the region trust the Navy's posture not for its aggression, but for its unwavering resolve. Each time a foreign submarine tests this resolve and receives no overreaction, only cool, calculated tracking, it reaffirms, "You are in our domain, and in this domain, we define the rules." This is how war is prevented, not by saber rattling, but by deploying a system so advanced, persistent, and integrated that an unauthorized submerged platform knows it's being watched before it surfaces. The Venezuelan submarine may have passed unnoticed by the public, but not by the U.S. Navy. It entered a monitored space, its data captured, behavior analyzed, and risk profile assessed. Upon its departure, it left something more valuable than noise: proof that the U.S. needs no escalation to dominate, that it can absorb tension, track intent, and maintain supremacy without revealing full details. Sometimes the most powerful response is not a torpedo, but the knowledge that if one had been needed, it would have struck before the submarine knew it was targeted. This is the modern battlefield: underwater, unseen, and unmistakably controlled, where the U.S. Navy has no equal.